Well, what interesting times we're living in, eh? We've had a very interesting couple of weeks, haven't we, in the world? Um, I've just been trying to write a bit to John Stevens. But the issue is, in the last couple of weeks we've had, or last month, we've had all the, we've had people present to the Metropolitan Police a series of criminal infringements that have been, um, carried out, which are illegal. They're illegal, and so they're being presented to police. And newspapers and the Metropolitan Police themselves, um, have stated no, they did not instigate this investigation, and and they are speaking according to maritime law, according to the Crown, according to how things are currently run, um, and of course the powers that be, who have invested interests in nothing ever changing, and they are insisting on their control. They don't want anything to change, um, but that what they're saying is actually irrelevant because common law is the most important law. What they don't like you realizing this, but maritime law is purely by consent. It has no firm legal basis or foundation whatsoever. To have anything to do with you, it has to create a construct in law which is known, read about this in Black's Law, of a straw man. So it is a man who is designated, all our names are designated in capital letters. It isn't us, it's actually a dead man. And it's created at our birth certificate, and it's created according to maritime law, which is upon water, so it's a fiction. Real law is upon land. It's our 2 feet standing on terra firma. That's real law. So this is the creation of a platform that looks like it exists, and the way to get round it is by saying it's upon water. This is a construction made with a straw man version of us, which is in capital letters and is traded upon when we reach our 15th birthday in 9 months. And for the rest of our life, we are traded without any knowledge whatsoever on the stock exchange. And you can look that up on a website, gmeiutility.org. And you see the amount of times you have been traded and the extraordinary companies all over the world that are trading you. Unbelievable. So, yes, it is correct when the media say, the Met did not instigate this. And it's correct when they're saying today, or the fact checkers are saying today, there is no international investigation into COVID. There is, but not in maritime law. No, this is the International Common Law Court, which until things can be established, it's just called for the public to decide, which is what common law is. So both facts are true. Both things exist. Yes, there is a definite investigation going on, and with Kevin Annett, there was a definite series of indictments to the 2 popes, the last popes, for their absolutely murderous activities and paedophilia activities. It's as real as anything. It's just squashed for reasons of infrastructure and Crown authority and control, and kept hush publicly. So all these things, they just it's just, in the end, what is important? Is truth important or infrastructure? it is true that if everything came out all at once, and maybe people are even instigating this, trying to instigate this, so that they can then bring in military rule and curfews and all this kind of stuff, and then make a change over that way. Maybe everything has been hidden so that at the precise time when they're ready, they're going to release this in a flood of information so that all society breaks down and there's mayhem everywhere. Well, the idea with the internet was to leak these things slowly in a manageable amounts so that people could begin to take things on board without it being an absolute breakdown everywhere. So that's the idea. But we are in very interesting times, what with the truckers in Canada and whatever. But so is the church. So is the church. And many people are thinking that Jesus is about to come back. I hope he isn't about to come back because his bride isn't ready. We haven't lived or obeyed any of the New Testament scriptures yet. We haven't brought forth Christ in each other yet, because those are the gifts given to us from the ascended Christ to be able to do that. And we haven't really got a mature man in the earth yet. So, yeah, we can all go to heaven early, but the whole point of earth is to develop these things in a kind of crash course boot camp. And the fact that we're not making use of the tools we've been given in the Spirit means that, there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot to be done on this wonderful earth of ours that God has given to the sons of men. Not to be fooled and tricked everywhere by demons. They don't rule here. And so most of the large messes that we see around right now are purely to do with the pyramid structure of everything and demonic control from pyramids and shaming and people, narcissists at the top. And a whole trickle down in this pyramid shape of power, and we can't really move, we can't really do anything. And it has become like the end of a Monopoly game, where in the last half hour, a lot of people just feel like leaving the board game altogether. It's so awful, and that's what we're in right now. There are only two real companies in the earth right now: BlackRock and Vanguard. BlackRock is BP, BlackRock is Shell, BlackRock is Tesco. You just go on and on and on. The 1,000 top companies are all under the same structure, in the same thing. We can't move. And that's why originally we had monopoly and mergers commissions, But it turns out that rather than keeping everything separate, all they've done, they were the midwife to make everything into one homogeneous block and make everything impossible for us. They lied. It's like Council of Foreign Relations. It's the Council of Foreign Relations, all right? How can we best get a war between all these countries? How can we best split people so they hate each other? That's what Council of Foreign Relations is. But we've been lied to. It's all lies. So, but the good thing that should encourage everyone is that regardless of, being so few people still seems to be really waking up. For years we thought we're the strange ones. But we're thinking, no, I don't have to live that way. I don't have to live that way. And because everybody else lives that way, you sort of think, is there something odd with me? We can be free. We can live free. And that's also the gospel. The gospel is that we live free. If you abide in my word, then you're truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and that truth will set you free. And what is the truth? Well, very simply, that Genesis 3 is a lying platform. That we can reverse the curse totally 100%. Jesus talks about 100-fold fruit. And how does that happen? Well, it has to be 100-fold person living our life. And Jesus is that. We can't fail. That's what Hebrews says. We have an anchor already in the heavenlies. So how can we fail? He's reeling us in. We have this hope. And it doesn't look, Paul always said it doesn't appear, these things. And he said that in the middle of Roman Empire pyramid rule, throttling the life out of all Mediterranean countries. And then, and then eventually that crumbled. But really, Rome changed hat. Same thing, but with the bishop's hat on, Pope's hat on. And then things got terrible and terrible and terrible until really around 1000 to 1500. It was chronic, absolutely chronic. Read all this in Fox's Martyrs. And then eventually people started thinking, well, hold on, we can print Bibles. Every family can have its own Bible and read for themselves how salvation works, how this faith system works, how Jesus Christ has set us free. And that started a whole thing. I mean, we call it, Reformation and everything, but it's big because then democracy really became possible because every sovereign individual had his own purpose and right and God-given task and God-given responsibility in administering. And that's really, what we've been waking up to slowly for 500 years since that time. Before that, it was pretty much lords and serfs everywhere, or barons, or. So it's a big thing that's happening now. We're kind of finally waking up to. It isn't a matter of living our lives slope-shouldering everything. Obviously, a lot of people are going into New Age, and you can understand them being pig sick with churches as they are now. But the answer isn't to go back to demons, however nicely dressed they are, however nicely dressed Lucifer is. The answer is not that, because that was the problem in Genesis 3. Why repeat the whole thing for another 6,000 years in New Age? No, we're talking about Jesus, who is Lord. He already is Lord. It's a waste of time going to another Lord. There is only one King right now, Jesus Christ. And there's only one who is ever worthy. Can't tell me Buddha was worthy or any of the others. This is God who came from heaven, laid his glory aside, came and was prepared to be spat upon, beaten, and everything for no reason at all, and then died. But the greater plan was to let Satan throw everything at him so he could cut it all out in the spirit in his body, which he did, and then walked out of his own grave with it all finished. So that's why Christianity is really so good. It's not anything hardly to do with what's currently in high streets. With some proud minister that's studied for 3 years and it probably isn't a pastor or a people carer anyway. He's just a failed businessman probably. He's just learnt a few things spiritually and goes through the same ritual every week and then preaches about something that he now has the first idea of or will or desire to carry out himself, and he doesn't believe that in his innermost heart that it is possible, and he preaches that every week, and it's dead boring, isn't it? That's why people are leaving church. It doesn't work. Church as it is doesn't work. Not even Spirit-filled church, really. Being born again, Spirit-filled, but still, as Hollywood has displayed over and over again in the last 50 years, how useless in the real world these things are and how dreadful those places are, because they're not real churches. A real church was like Acts chapter 2. That's a real church with 12 kingdom living people living together in light and saying to folk, do you want some? Like Jesus said to the 12, do you want some? Come and follow me. Do you want some? That is the gospel. Your ministers in the high street can't say that. They've never lived kingdom. They don't know about how Galatians 2:20 works in the real world. And certainly not 12 of them in one church. There isn't a church like that I know of on earth. Don't give me that you have the first clue of what you're doing. And that's why the kingdom is going to be great, because it really is great. But we all have to go through the Lord's Prayer, where in the central section of the Lord's Prayer are the three main giant cavernous things, excavations in our own soul of supply. We either get supply right or we get hooked into Rothschild pyramid out of sheer terror, and we go complying with government and state because we're so frightened that we'll die. So either give us this day our daily bread, all right. What about relationships? If we don't get relationships right, we just don't walk this way of forgiveness and forbearance, and really believing for Christ himself to come forth out of this little flesh and blood person I see in front of me. Got to do that with each other, because the secular way is rubbish. Even with them trying their hardest with psychiatry and behavioural psychology, at the end of the day, those professions have the most people committing suicide. It's so good. Look at the facts. That profession has the most amount of suicides. Because it's empty, because they're not talking about spirit. Only Christianity and New Age mention the fact that we are spirit. So unless we're speaking to one another according to those spirit realities, we're just speaking and bouncing off people's heads, suggesting ideas, opinions, and all this kind of stuff. But we are spirit. And then finally, the last thing is that, I'm looking at the time, golly, it's 17 minutes already. The last thing, about being pulled. We're pulled by all sorts of things. Some things are quite innocent as well. And other things which are real bondage. But it's whatever God isn't doing by me in my little body right now is going to lead to some short circuit or other. So we have to learn this new walk completely of what flows and what is real life going on. That's what the Lord's Prayer is. And that is what kingdom is. And that's why kingdom is possible. If it wasn't possible, God wouldn't have given us the Lord's Prayer. Not so you can read it out in Anglican churches. Oh, Father, who art, with your eyes glazed and all this kind of stuff, like a robot. It's visceral. That's why the devil makes Anglicans behave like robots, because he doesn't want them hearing inwardly what on earth the words mean. He just likes them doing the same thing for 70 years so that they're killed off dead in their coffin at the end with none the wiser, never having changed in their life. He loves that. Yes, so everything is a lot more positive than you think. A lot more positive.